The law's there, but nothing's happening.
Why are known Canadian pedophiles traveling freely?
This can't be happening.
To places where they can commit horrendous crimes.
There needs to be stronger measures.
When
Cuba is just the latest in a number of countries around the world catering to tourists looking for sex with children. And one of the other hotspots is Costa Rica. Prostitution is legal, but sex with anyone under 18 is not.
How old is she? 10.
As W5 discovered in 2004, that doesn't mean it's not happening.
I've seen so much nice ass in all your life.
Tourists can rent young girls from desperately poor families who see no value in their children except to hire them out for sex. Tourists with full wallets but no heart. Young girls haggled over like pieces of meat, and the men who exploit them almost always get away with it. But there is a law. It was passed by Parliament in 1997, and it treats sex crimes committed abroad as if they happened in Canada. But having a law is one thing. Getting a conviction is quite another. The law had been on the books for almost 11 years before Canada got its first conviction. Here's how it happened. In 2009, W5 told the story of Donald Baker and what Vancouver police found in a cache of pornographic videos when he was arrested in 2003. The content was horrific. 7 young children, some barely school age, being sexually abused by Baker. But the big question for police, where was it happening? They narrowed their search down to Cambodia. And what Detective Sergeant Juan Beg found there was shocking.
You enter this ramshackle town, and you know that men from all around the world come there for one specific reason: to have sex with children.
You can't believe that that actually exists in our world. It's mind-boggling.
425, I'm just going to walk us into those rooms.
Inside those rooms, children were forced to work as sex slaves, pleasuring Donald Baker and other pedophiles like him. Back in Vancouver, Beg compared the images the police recorded in Cambodia side by side with those on Baker's video.
We're comparing the very specific identifiers from that room that would identify this and separate this from any other room in the world.
It was enough evidence to convince the 40-year-old Baker to plead guilty, and in June 2005, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. He was released after serving 7 years. Baker was just one of 5 Canadians convicted of child sex tourism since the law was introduced in 1997. Beyond Borders lawyer Mark Hecht.
Having the legislation is crucial, but on top of that, you then need the rest of the, let's say, pieces of the puzzle to fall into place in order for it to work. So in other words, you have the law, but then you need good investigators to be able to investigate the crimes, and then you need the prosecutors of the Crown to prosecute the crimes, and then you need the judiciary, you need the judges to pass tough sentencing. And I think that's where we're falling apart, is with the last 3 steps. There has been some cases where we have caught sex offenders who travel abroad or sex tourists, but most often we've caught them by accident.
Caught by accident, like James McTurk, who went to Cuba 31 times, because there are no travel restrictions for convicted child sex offenders.
If you are a Canadian and you are convicted of a sex crime against a child, your passport will not be revoked. As soon as your sentence is done, you're able to leave the country and commit these crimes elsewhere. We won't prevent you from doing that, and we're not going to let them know that you're coming.
That has to be the most galling thing for Canadians, to know that a convicted sex offender can leave the country and go to some third world country where he will just sexually abuse children.
That's the whole issue with this topic of child sex tourism, is even if we're not talking about thousands of Canadians who are doing it, it's a problem that's fairly easy to repair compared to other more significant problems. And one way to repair it, as you said, is you just don't give them the passports once they're convicted.
Conservative MP Joyce Smith insists big changes are on the way. But right now, the ability of the courts to take away passports is limited.
If you have a pedophile that goes abroad, and this pedophile has an indictable offense in another country, that passport can be revoked.
Well, you're talking about an indictable offense in another country.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is if a Canadian is convicted in Canada of sex abuses against children, he gets a passport and he travels abroad repeatedly. Not convicted abroad or anything, but he just keeps going and going and going. Can we revoke his passport?
Right now, we're looking at a stronger system because there needs to be stronger measures put in. We know that. It's not enough right now.
I spoke to Beyond Borders.
Yes.
And they said, here are some easy fixes. Don't give pedophiles, convicted pedophiles, a passport.
Yeah, no.
Give the CBSA access to the sex offenders registry. Easy fixes. And while we wait, these guys go overseas and keep raping these little girls and little boys. And every day that we wait, another boy, another girl is raped.
This is absolutely horrific and unacceptable. It does frustrate me. It makes me crazy.
It makes you crazy. Do you go up to the Justice Minister, Nicholson? Do you go up to Vic Tays and say, hey guys, come on, let's move?
We do. We talk about it all the time. And they're as enthusiastic about getting this stopped as I am.
And on those few occasions Canadian pedophiles are stopped and convicted, their sentences are light compared to similar convictions in the United States. Take the case of Kenneth Klassen. He was sentenced to 11 years by a court in British Columbia for having sex with children as young as 8 in Cambodia and Colombia. That same year, an American pedophile, Michael Pepe, was sentenced to 110 years for the torture and rape of children in Cambodia.
We enforce the law.
A focused strategy, according to Patrick Redling from ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. That means a nasty surprise for sex tourists who abuse children abroad. A welcome committee when they return to the United States. ICE has arrested 260 sex tourists since 2003. 205 have been convicted.
This is a global problem that needs a global response, and I think here in the United States, we take the safety of our children very seriously. So if we can take a predator off the streets who is seriously harming children, that's a victory.
As for James McTurk, the 78-year-old Canadian who was charged with possession of child pornography in 2012, well, he's being held at the Maplehurst Detention Centre in Ontario, and his case has yet to be heard in court. But now he faces new charges for crimes allegedly committed in Cuba. On March 5, 2013, Toronto police charged him with 9 sex tourism offenses, including making child pornography and sexual interference. Kim Gross runs the child exploitation section of the Toronto Police.
Is this the first case for Metro Toronto Police to go on a sex tourism charge?
It is.
Will it be difficult, do you think?
Not in this instance. I'm hoping that we are rewarded with a successful conviction. Of course, we'll wait and see when he has his trial. We're very fortunate in this case that we don't have to travel to the country to collect the evidence that we need, that we have compelling evidence on its face.
That evidence still has to be tested in court. And in Canada, McTurk is presumed innocent until proven guilty. The Toronto Police are well aware of all the hurdles.
It's not easy to work on these types of cases. There's tons of different hurdles that have to be jumped. There's protocols, there's memorandums of understanding, there's human rights concerns. Happily, I can say that we're dedicated to not only spend the resources to do these types of investigations, but it becomes a priority for us, because how can we turn a blind eye to having a Canadian travel to another country that happens to be less fortunate to abuse children? We just can't do that.
We'll be right back.